And we're back. Today we are going to be installing those parts that we've been waiting on. They finally got here, so we can put them on and start figuring out what exactly was going on. We're going to do a little process of elimination, like I said before. We're also going to probably be washing this thing, depending on the weather and how big of a pansy I am. It's like 30 some degrees out, so we might end up taking it out, washing it, and seeing if that misfire is gone. You can see here, got the parts. I got the charge tube in that one, a coil and then plug wires in that, and then that box, if you know, you know. That's for an upcoming project. You guys will have to stay tuned. We should be diving into that shortly, within the next week or so. It'll probably be a little bit longer, I guess you'd say, until you guys see it, but we'll dive right into this. We'll get things going. I'm gonna, first things first, put those injectors in. I'll show you guys that. And then I'm gonna swap plug wires, I think, to see if maybe that was just the cause, as I had a bad plug wire. We'll try moving cylinder 1 to cylinder 2, see if it's still got a misfire. If it does, then that leads me to believe that the coil wire is bad. If the misfire is still there on the same cylinder, even with swapping plug wires, then that's going to lead me to believe that the coil pack is bad. So, but we'll start with putting the injectors in it, and then we'll go from there. Also wanted to mention, we're trying no mic this video, just to see if that helps with sound quality, so you guys will have to let me know if it's better, worse, what you guys think. But we're going to try that, and then I also wanted to say thanks. We're at 50 subs, which is super cool. I know most of it's probably friends and family, but let's see how big we can get this thing. Next step's 100, I guess, so let's do it. All right, when you guys are doing razor injectors, one thing I did want to mention is this fuel rail, for whatever reason, is a lot deeper, I guess you'd say, than it needs to be. So that injector can actually slip pretty far in there, like that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but when you slip it all the way up until it's seated in this injector rail, what happens is when you put this injector rail back mounted where it needs to be, that injector does not seat all the way where it's supposed to. So if you can see, let me get this harness all the way, that ring there, it's not even close to being in that intake manifold. And this injector rail is pretty much all the way down, you can see. So what you got to do is you actually got to pull that injector a little bit out of that rail, so that it'll seat all the way down in the intake manifold. Just a little tip. All right, when you guys are doing razor injectors, one thing I did want to mention is this fuel rail, for whatever reason, is a lot deeper, I guess you'd say, than it needs to be. So that injector can actually slip pretty far in there, like that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but when you slip it all the way up until it's seated in this injector rail, what happens is when you put this injector rail back mounted where it needs to be, that injector does not seat all the way where it's supposed to. So if you can see, let me get this harness all the way, that ring there, it's not even close to being in that intake manifold. And this injector rail is pretty much all the way down, you can see. So what you got to do is you actually got to pull that injector a little bit out of that rail, so that it'll seat all the way down in the intake manifold. Just a little tip. So yeah, I'm going to pull this injector out of this rail just a little bit here. Obviously you want that ring still to be sealed in there, but you want it to seat down in the intake manifold as well. So kind of just split the gap. Get this other one put in. Just want to make sure you're not rolling up that O-ring, that it's sliding in there, not pushing off the injector. I mean, you guys know how razors catch fire and burn to the ground all the time, so if we can stop that from happening, being our own will doing, it's kind of a good thing, I guess. You don't want to be a meme on the internet. Alright, so that's seated in the intake manifold pretty good. So I'm gonna put my bolts back in. They're just little 8 mils. They're tiny little guys, so make sure you don't drop them or else you're gonna have a bad day trying to hunt it down. As I drop one. Funny. Falls down in the cylinder. Alright, I got both those started. I'll get them tightened up with a little ratcheting 8mm wrench, which seems to have left a chat, so I'll get that and we'll get them tightened up. Wrench. Let's get these things going finger tight first. Doing a bed delete's a great idea. Gives you access to everything. However, sharp objects everywhere after doing a bed delete. That's great for your knuckles and my knuckles. Tight. Remember, cross thread, national Loctite. All right, injector clips, pretty self-explanatory. This is how you take them off, this little push pin right here. Otherwise they just snap in. You just press one, hear them click. Bada bing, bada boom. We'll get plugs in it. Next, we'll put the coil plugs back, or the plug wires back on. Then we'll start it and see if it's still got a misfire. Sock plug or spark plug sockets seem to never hold the spark plug, so that's cool. Somebody could figure that out. Be nice. So it seems like either they drop the plug down in the cylinder or they don't come off of it, and you go to pull your extension out and the socket stays in the freaking cylinder. Gotta love it. Right. These bad boys back on. All right, we're ready for our first test fire. See if it's still got a misfire, like I said. So let's start it up and see what it sounds like. It hasn't ran in probably, well, since King of the Hammers, so we'll see if it starts even. Should probably make sure there's not fuel shooting everywhere, huh? Be a good idea. Looks dry. Injectors are plugged in. Give it another go. Prime the fuel pump one more time, I guess. Is that fuel pump plugged in? Buzzing, that would help, I suppose. Wonder how well it works when it has fuel. like in the past, it took for it to warm up before it started misfiring. So I'll let it get some heat in it and see if that if it's still misfiring, obviously. Still seems to be running pretty all right. I might go drive it, see if I can get it dacked up. It is so cold out. I'm just trying to get warmed back up. But it was still misfiring. I'm not sure how well you could hear me in the car, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna swap the new plug wires I have. I'm gonna pull spark plugs too, just to see if one of them is clean or dirtier than the other. See if I can see any kind of spark issue there. Maybe that'll be a giveaway of which plug wire it is. I'm hoping that it was just a plug wire, but I do have that coil pack if we need to swap that out. And if I have to keep the new one as a spare, not a bad thing to have for these long trips we go on, that's for sure. So I got the spark plugs out. They're still a little warm, obviously, because I just was running the machine. They look similar as far as, you know, the coloration. Doesn't look like there's anything crazy going on, like one wasn't firing or anything like that. We might have just had a misfire up top, which again could be a plug wire. So we'll swap those out. I might re-gap these two while I have them out. It looks like one of them might be a tiny bit tighter than the other one. So I got a gap tool. We'll re-gap these, but I'm gonna throw those new plug wires on and we'll go from there. All right, spark plugs are re-gapped. I'll insert a picture of that. Got the new plug wires in. We'll go ahead and start it up and we'll see if I'm man enough to go on another test drive. I'm definitely not prepared. Should probably get a ski mask or something. 32 degrees is a little cold to be out hammering on this thing, and a lot of you guys will call me a wuss, but whatever. It is what it is. It's cold for me. I hate the cold. Fair weathered. Still doing it. You guys seen that? It is still misfiring. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap out that coil pack. I'm going to swap out that coil pack. I'm going to put the old plug wires back on and see if that fixes it. Then I'll know that it was the coil pack and had nothing to do with the plug wires. And then I'll have two good sets of plug wires. Like I said, spares are always good for anything, so especially on long trips. So, but I'm going to get that coil pack out. I'll show you guys and then we'll go from there. All right. So I think to get the coil pack out, it's just that looks like a 10 mil there. And then there is a harness clip on the side there. You can see it. And there's that ground strap that I think goes maybe to where that stud is. I'm not sure. We'll get it apart. I'll get a 10 mil on there, get that clip undone, and then we'll see how it goes in there. Plug wires are on. New coils installed. Those are the old wires. We will start it up, make sure it runs, and then we'll see if it still has a misfire. Sounds a little better. We'll see what that does for us. So it's still acting up. I mean, at this point, we've changed the coil packs, the coil pack, the plug wires, spark plugs. I'm thinking I'm gonna swap out that charge tube. I have that new one. That old one had a hole in it. I doubt that's my issue, but it could be throwing off a sensor even though it's plugged. It could be a bad sensor too. I did end up swapping out the map sensor right there before I went. So, I mean, it could be just a bad sensor, and I could be chasing an issue that really just comes down to that's a cheap Amazon sensor, not an OEM one. I was working on a project before I left, and it had a misfire that was boost related. It ended up being a wastegate issue. Well, in troubleshooting it, I was swapping sensors with this machine, and we ended up breaking that sensor there and just ordered one off Amazon to replace it to get it here right away. And I never really went and test drove it or took it on a ride, I guess, before we went to Hammers. So I'm gonna swap out the tube quick, and then I think I'm gonna just order a new sensor and hope that that solves it. But I'll swap that tube out real quick. We'll give that a go. Like I said, I doubt that's what I got going on here, but I have it, so I might as well do it. It'd be a real bummer if the coil and the plug wires weren't an issue. But like I said, they're nice to have around. Worst case scenario is I spent $200 and I got spare parts. So, but let's get that tube out of there and see what that does. New charge tube is in. I'm gonna end up ordering a little piece of rubber for the charge tube to separate. Right now I just got cardboard in there. You can call me a hack if you want, but doing the best I can with what I got. So we're gonna get the dyno jet hooked up. That way when we're out, I can watch the map sensor reading, see if something looks crazy there. Like I said, that'll be a dead giveaway if that sensor's falling out or something like that. It is a Bosch sensor. I don't know what they are from the factory, but Bosch is a pretty big brand, so I'd imagine it's probably what it is from the factory, but who knows. We'll get it fired up right now, and we'll see what it does from there. So, all right, so here's where we're at. I just went and drove it again. It's still doing it. I did have the dyno jet hooked up. I did see, as soon as I whacked it and it started building boost, it showed 30 plus pounds of map pressure, which I'm not quite sure how that translates to boost pressure. I'll have to do a little more research to kind of see how that works, because it was demanding, it looked like, or it was showing 30 some, like 35 I think I seen pounds of pressure on the map sensor, which would make me believe that if that's even remotely close to what it's trying to make for boost, that maybe my gate's not opening, maybe the gate's stuck. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the firewall behind the seats out, see if I can get that wastegate actuator arm to move. Maybe that gate's stuck closed, and it's just making all the boost that it can, and it's running out of fuel. That would make sense. You know, when this started, we originally thought that it was a fuel issue. You know, we ended up putting a pump in it, cleaning those injectors out. Problem existed still, so then we moved on to spark. I mean, you guys have seen what we've done in this video. So now I think that it may be making too much boost and running out of fuel, which, like I said, if the wastegate's going bad or stuck closed, or even one of the lines to the boost controller, if one of those lines is clogged and the boost controller is not seeing the correct amount of boost, even though the turbo is making more than enough boost, it would just keep demanding more, and like I said, it would run out of fuel, which from my knowledge with the tune in this car, the turbo that's on the car, you won't run out of fuel is what I was told. Like, the stock injectors and the pump would max out what that turbo's capable of, if that makes sense. But I could be totally wrong. I don't know. But I think that's where this one's going to end. I hate to keep stringing out a misfire issue or a not running right issue over multiple videos, but you know, I mean, sometimes it's not as easy as replacing one part. I mean, we've already spent some money. We got, like I said, spares now, but and I'm not going to rule out that wasn't aiding in the issue, I guess, or assisting the issue that was existing. But yeah, from here, I guess we just keep diving into it, checking for overboost issues. It's not throwing a code for anything whatsoever. I thought that personally that tune, being that the boost pressure is set higher, maybe it won't throw a code, but I don't know. You would think it would still throw an overboost code if it was making too much. Again, it might be running out of fuel before it makes that kind of boost, before the map sensors actually read that it's making, 20 plus pounds of boost, which I didn't think was possible on a stock turbo. Again, I'm rambling on here, but we will pick up. I am going to grab a different sensor. That map sensor is the only thing that I changed prior to having this issue. So I am going to grab a different sensor. I have a buddy that has a RZR, a Turbo S, or any XP Turbo, I guess would work. But I'm going to try swapping that sensor, see if that helps at all. And then, like I said, I'm going to take the back firewall off and see if that gate arm is stuck. That's where we're going to start. And I guess, yeah, keep liking these videos, guys. Like I said, we're at 50. So it'd be real cool to be at 100 by, say, I don't know, the 10th video. That would be sweet. If we can get to 1,000, mine would be blown. But baby steps, 100. Let's get there. Thanks.